I'm going to talk to you today about planting a garden. This is a step that a lot of beginning gardeners skip, and it ends up being something that they regret. One of the most important things before you start gardening, before you start putting plants in your yard or wherever, is to plan it. You have to think about a number of different factors in order to increase your chances of success and make sure that you're going to end up having a nice garden. A lot of beginning gardeners just kind of get all gung-ho, they go crazy, they go out and buy a bunch of plants, they plant them in their yard, and a month later they've got a bunch of dead plants because they didn't know what they were doing, they didn't spend the time planning. So, there are a number of different factors you have to consider. First of all is, what is the purpose of your garden? Are you growing vegetables that you plan to harvest and eat? Are you growing flowers, certain types of flowers that, to enhance the beauty of your yard? Are there specific colors of flowers that you're looking for? Are you interested in annuals or perennials? Perennials come back every year. Annuals only last for one growing season. Or are you creating a boundary? Maybe you're using plants or flowers as a boundary in your yard, maybe separating your yard from a neighbor or different areas of your yard. So think about the purpose of the garden before you start planting anything. The second thing you need to consider is the space. How much space do you have? Are you planning a garden that's going to take up an entire acre of land? Probably not if you're a beginning gardener. It's going to be in your front yard, in your backyard. How much room do you have? Is it going to be a plot that's maybe 10 feet by 10 feet or smaller than that? I suggest for a very beginning gardener, a novice gardener, start small. Start with maybe 3 feet by 3 feet. And as you get successful with a smaller area, you can always expand your garden. It's easier to expand a small garden than to make a big garden smaller. So start small, and you can always increase the size. The other thing to think about is, how much sun does this area get? Are you putting the garden in an area of your yard that it gets full sun all day long? That's really going to have an effect on the types of plants that you're going to be able to choose. Or is it an area that has partial sun, or maybe sun in the morning and shade in the afternoon? Knowing that is really going to help narrow down your selection of plants or flowers that you're going to be able to plant and have them grow successfully. The other thing to think about is, what kind of soil do you have in the area? Different areas have different soil types, and different soil types may or may not have an influence, enable you to have a more successful garden. Some soil types are very rich in nutrients and very good for growing different types of plants. Other soil types are a little more hostile and maybe limit the number of the types of plants that can be grown in them. So think about that. Think about, maybe you want to add some sort of conditioner to your soil to make it more fertile. If you live in an area where the soil is totally hostile and you have very limited choices, and maybe you want to be able to grow something that doesn't naturally grow in your area, consider using pots. Consider buying some large planters and use potting soil that will help that particular type of plant be successful in your area. The other thing to think about is, how much time are you willing to spend working on your garden? Do you want a garden you can just plant and walk away from and water regularly, hopefully water and have it be successful? Or are you someone who has the time and the energy to spend a lot of time weeding or pruning, doing things like that with some of the plants and flowers that are a little more high maintenance? That is also a good thing to know beforehand. Sometimes people go out, they buy rose bushes because they're beautiful, and they don't realize that they take a lot of work. They take a lot of effort and pruning and care, and then they end up having roses that don't do very well because they're not willing to spend the time. So the final thing to think about is the expense. How much are you willing to spend on your garden? If you want to go out and buy a whole bunch of really beautiful exotic plants, it can cost several $100s. Or maybe if you want to start smaller, you want something that's more affordable, start with seeds. Go to your garden store and buy some packets of seeds and start with those. They're generally very inexpensive, a couple dollars at the most, and you can grow many varieties of plants and flowers from seeds. I recommend, if you do that though, that you start them in small pots and then transplant them once they get bigger. The other thing that I really recommend is do your homework. do the research beforehand. Go to the library, get some books on gardening, go to the garden center, talk to people who know a lot about gardening and get their advice and explain to them, hey, I'm a beginner, I want some flowers that are going to look really pretty in my yard, these are the colors I like, these are the, whatever effect you're trying to get, and get their advice. Make sure you talk to people, do your research, read some books, and you're going to end up with a really beautiful garden and a very rewarding gardening experience.